You could spend £59 at a Travelodge tonight, or £600 at a city center hotel. Same city, same basic function. A room, a bed, a shower. The price is very different. But what is behind it is not what most people assume. The obvious answer is that the expensive one costs more to run. More staff, better fixtures, bigger machine, bigger bill. That logic feels sound. It is also, in an important way, incomplete. Here is what hospitality consultants have known for years. Budget hotels and luxury hotels face the same basic architecture of costs. Not the same absolute costs, but the same structure. And that distinction changes how the entire industry reads. There are roughly 64,000 hotels in the United States, holding 5.7 million rooms. In 2024, the industry generated around $263 billion in revenue, roughly equal to the entire economy of New Zealand. A very large industry built on one very particular piece of financial logic. The logic is this. Both a roadside budget motel and a five-star resort carry a fixed cost base that runs before they earn a penny of profit. The question is not what it costs to build them, it is what it costs to keep the lights on when no one checks in. Before a hotel takes its first booking, it has costs. The building mortgage or lease, property taxes, building insurance, which rose 17.4% across U.S. hotels in 2024, according to CBRE research. These bills arrive on the first of the month, whether the hotel is full or empty. Then there is the minimum staffing. You cannot run a hotel with nobody at the front desk. A skeleton crew is always on. Security, maintenance, a duty manager. The building needs to be heated, lit, and operational on a Tuesday in January, just as it does on a Saturday in July. Then the system costs. Franchise fees, booking platforms, revenue management software, loyalty program overhead. A Marriott property pays for the right to carry the Marriott name, to appear in the app, to reward Bonvoy members, regardless of who is staying. Finally, the variable costs, the things that actually scale with guests. Housekeeping when a room is turned, laundry, toiletries, food and beverage supplies. These are real costs, but they only arise when a room is actually sold. Fixed and variable. That is the fundamental division in hotel economics. And the industry's own data shows, consistently, that the fixed portion is heavier than most people outside the industry expect. Across U.S. hotels, industry analysis places the typical cost split at roughly 60 to 65% fixed and 35 to 40% variable. Two-thirds of what a hotel spends is committed before a single guest checks in. The other third follows the bookings. Think about what that means. Say a hotel carries a total cost base of £1 million a year. About £650,000 of that leaves the account each month regardless of occupancy. The remaining £350,000 scales with rooms filled. Revenue must be built above the fixed floor, and the floor does not move. The single largest cost in any hotel is labor. CBRE's analysis of 2,600 U.S. hotels in 2023 found wages and benefits at 32.4% of total revenue, the highest share ever recorded. As a proportion of total operating expenses, 51.7%. More than half of hotel spending on people. And much of that labor is effectively fixed. The front desk is staffed whether 2 rooms are occupied or 90. The general manager is salaried. The engineering team is contracted. You can flex some housekeeping hours, but the management structure cannot dissolve overnight. Kirby D. Payne, President Emeritus of HVS Hotel Management, put it plainly. There are very few costs that are actually uncontrollable in a hotel. There are simply some expenses which take longer to reduce than others. Fixed costs are not immovable, they are just slow, and that slowness is the whole problem. Here is what the title of this video is pointing at. For full-service hotels, city properties, conference centers, 4-star hotels with restaurants and spas, labor as a percentage of revenue typically runs at 25 to 35%. For limited service budget properties, the figure is 15 to 25%. That gap is real. Luxury hotels do employ more people per room, but the gap is closer to 1.5 to 2 times, not 3, and both tiers are still operating with a cost base that is predominantly fixed, that does not disappear when rooms sit empty, and that must be crossed before any margin appears. Take Travelodge, where rooms start at £29 a night. In 2024, it reported £1,037 million in revenue. Wage increases and national insurance changes added roughly £30 million to its costs. EBITDA fell from £237 million to £211 million, not because fewer people stayed, but because the fixed cost line rose. Premier Inn, also a budget chain, saw revenue per available room rise 10% in 2024 to £65.56. Its operating costs rose 8% to £1.72 billion. Revenue growing, costs growing beneath it. Both are budget operators fighting the same structural battle, year on year, on the same side of the same equation. A Four Seasons faces exactly this. So does a Ritz-Carlton. The rooms are more expensive, the staff are more numerous, the finishes are more refined, but the architecture underneath is the same. A heavy fixed base that must be covered before profit appears. The mechanism does not change, only the scale. In 2024, the average nightly rate in the U.S. luxury hotel segment ran at around $450 per room. In the economy segment, the comparable figure was around $75. That is a 6-to-1 ratio in price, for a cost structure that is broadly similar in both proportion and structural vulnerability. Here is the simplified version. 2 hotels, each with 100 rooms. Luxury charges $450 a night. Budget charges $75, both at 60% occupancy. The luxury property generates $27,000 in room revenue per night. The budget property generates $4,500. Same fixed cost architecture. Vastly different revenue cushion. The luxury hotel does not need to be full to be profitable. Even at 45% occupancy, its fixed base is being carried by revenue that is several times higher in absolute terms. A $450 room at 40% occupancy generates more revenue than a $75 room at 80%. The maths favor rate, every time. This is why U.S. luxury RevPAR grew 5.3% in 2024, while economy RevPAR fell. Luxury properties raise prices because demand at the top of the market is inelastic. The guest choosing a 5-star hotel is not shopping on price. They are buying something the cost structure does not determine: scarcity, certainty, and a particular kind of status. A budget motel charges what the market will bear in a competitive, commodity price segment. A 5-star hotel charges what a market it has deliberately shaped will pay. Both face the same structural cost reality. Only one has found a way out of the volume game. The escape route is price. Every hotel operator carries one number in their head: break-even occupancy. The percentage of rooms that need to be filled before fixed costs are covered. For full-service hotels, industry guidance puts that figure at 45 to 55%. For limited service properties, around 45%. Running nationally at 63%, the margin for error is narrow. Imagine you are running a full-service hotel in early 2020. Occupancy is at 66%, just above break-even. Your fixed costs are covered. Your variable costs are scaling normally. Your business is functioning. Then something happens that no model anticipated. In April 2020, U.S. hotel occupancy hit 24.5%, the lowest ever recorded. The mortgage was still due. The skeleton crew was still on payroll. Franchise fees were still accruing. But across the country, more than 3/4 of all rooms were empty. The fixed cost floor had not moved. The revenue had almost disappeared. By the end of 2020, annual occupancy had fallen to 44%. The industry lost approximately $112 billion, roughly equal to Hungary's entire annual economy, gone in a single year. 670,000 direct hotel jobs were cut, not because the industry was poorly run, because fixed costs met an occupancy collapse and there was nowhere to hide. What 2020 demonstrated, without ambiguity, is that luxury and budget hotels are not fundamentally different kinds of business. They are the same kind of business at different price points. At 24.5% occupancy, a Ritz-Carlton and a Ramada Inn are the same thing. A building full of committed costs with almost nobody paying to be there. Labor is where the economics become most concrete. In 2024, U.S. hotels collectively paid $125.79 billion in wages and compensation. That figure is larger than the annual revenues of Amazon Web Services in 2023. Hotels collectively spend more on people than the world's largest cloud computing business earns. Marriott International manages approximately 1.6 million rooms worldwide and employs around 418,000 people. In November 2024, CEO Anthony Capuano announced an enterprise-wide restructuring targeting $80 to $90 million in annual cost savings. A company generating $24.76 billion in revenue is fighting for $90 million. That is how tight hotel economics are at the operating level. CBRE's Robert Mandelbaum and Andrea Grigg published their analysis in 2025. What they found: from 2019 to 2024, hours worked at the typical U.S. hotel fell 7.4%, but compensation costs rose 22.1%. Hotels are employing fewer people and paying them significantly more. The cost of labor is rising faster than the amount of it. This matters because labor is both the largest cost and the slowest to adjust. You cannot lay off your general manager on a slow Tuesday. You cannot dismantle the housekeeping team because January bookings softened. Labor sits anchored beneath the revenue line, and only one thing moves meaningfully across it: occupancy multiplied by rate. The mechanism is the same at every tier. A Travelodge and a Four Seasons both have a labor cost that is enormous, sticky, and only served by filling rooms at a price that covers it. The hotel is not, at its core, a hospitality business. It is a revenue management problem that happens to involve beds. The number hotel professionals reach for above all others is RevPAR, revenue per available room. Not revenue per room sold, revenue per room available, whether occupied or not. An empty room does not generate zero revenue. It generates negative margin, a cost with no income to set against it. When a budget motel charges $75 and a luxury hotel charges $450, the question is not which costs more to run. The question is which one needs to work how hard to cover its fixed base. Luxury wins not because it is cheaper to operate, but because price does what volume cannot. In 2024, U.S. hotel occupancy averaged 62.9%. On any given night, roughly 37% of American hotel rooms were empty, around 2.1 million rooms, incurring fixed costs and earning nothing. The industry runs with more than a third of its assets generating no revenue. That is the normal state of affairs. A budget motel and a luxury hotel are solving the same problem: fixed cost base, finite rooms. Find enough guests at a high enough price to cross the line where margin begins. One reaches for volume, the other reaches for rate. The problem is identical. Neither tier has fully solved this. Both are fighting the fixed cost floor every single night. So the next time you look at a room rate, whether it is £59 or £600, you are not reading what the room costs to run. You are reading what the market will pay, set against a cost base that runs regardless. The only question either of them can ask is it enough tonight?